Following on from my last video where I finished putting the engine in and exhaust on, I ended up having to move house 16 hours away. This was a huge task. Having to pack up a project car and all my tools and all the spare parts as well as the contents of a house was a mammoth task. Anyway, I got into the new house and set up my garage, and now it was time to strip the car back to bare metal. Before I could do this though, I actually needed to try and polish up the old paint to get a shine, because I was wanting to get the guys from Decadent to come and remove any dents at all that were in the car first. I knew that after the car was in bare metal, it would be near impossible to see any small thumb dents, and I wanted the car perfectly straight without having to do any filling. I did in fact have to get Decadent guys back because there were a couple of spots on the rear quarter that had a little bit of filler in them. There was quite a few spots of rust underneath the rubbers on the doors, and even around the windscreen rubbers there was a few spots, and this worried me a little bit, so I thought I'd best check all the seam sealer, so where all the seam sealer goes, this bit here. I thought I'd better scrape that up and just see what's underneath. Sure enough, there was rust that had formed underneath the seam sealer, so that meant that everywhere there was seam sealer I needed to take it out and reapply it, clean it all up and then reapply it. You can see there's quite a bit of rust there, so that wouldn't have been real good on a brand new paint job. So I'm glad I decided to strip all the paint back off here. Or off the whole car, back to bare metal. This boot has got at least 7 layers of paint on it, and I would have been putting probably another 3 coats of colour or primer, 3 coats of primer, 3 coats of base coat, and it'll probably have 6 coats of ultra show clear on it. So that would have been a lot of paint on these panels. You can see here, this is 1 layer of colour coming off there with primer underneath that, and then the original colour I believe is this darker colour here, and if I can get down through that, you can see more primer under that colour. And then there's a lighter colour under there. I don't know whether you can see that on there properly or not. And if I keep going, just not enough stripper on there to get through. But there is actually the steel underneath that white coat. You can see it over here actually, that's back down to steel there. And there's some of the grey, perhaps a base coat I'd say, and then the top coat, base coat, primer and steel. But yeah, I've already taken this layer, these 3 layers off here already, so heck of a lot of paint on there.
big job. Hopefully this down here won't be quite as bad. This is a different boot and the same colour bonnet off the same car. So the boot and bonnet could be a real issue, and hopefully this is not quite so bad.
In actual fact, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the boot and the bonnet. In fact, it was really quite enjoying to watch the paint stripper just pickle all the paint up and then basically just lightly scrape it and it would fall off. There was different paint on the roof and on the rear right-hand quarter, where there was also a bit of a repair, which I got the Decadent guys to come back and fix that up for me, so I didn't have to put filler in. But yeah, different types of paint on there, and that pickled up a different way. But it was quite enjoying. I was quite surprised just how easy it came off. Like I was saying, I quite enjoyed watching all the paint pickle up on the different panels. Each panel was a little bit different. As you can see, the roof there, and then the door and the guard here, all a little bit different. I filled many of these boxes up, quite a few in fact. It's surprising just how much paint's there. But I'm glad I did it because underneath the paint, without seeing any sort of telltale sign on top, there were little worms of rust on the rear quarter and on the bonnet, a couple on the roof, and you know, if you just rub the paint back, often you won't see the little worms of rust running under the paint somewhere else. So it was good to get it off, and as you'll see further on in the video, in a freeze frame, there's a spot of a worm of rust there, so it'll give you a great idea of just what they look like. And yeah, so had to get a wire wheel onto that, clean them right up, and then treat all the paint with deoxit, which removes any surface rust and gets it clean and ready for primer. Finally I was at the stage where all the panels were painted, all the body was painted in primer, and it was now a matter of waiting for all that to dry and then sanding it all back, which was quite time consuming, quite tedious. As you can see here, all those grooves, and then there was all the insides of the doors and inside the boot and bonnet channels. Quite time consuming, but you know, you just keep in mind the end result, what you're after, what you're aiming for, and that's what kept me going with it anyway. And after about 3.5, 4 years at this point, you needed to set your sights on what it was going to be like in the end. So you know, so you can sit back and enjoy the rewards of all your hard labour. So it was all done now and ready to be picked up by the truck to be taken into the spray booth. I didn't actually put the colour on. The colour was too expensive for me to put on, plus I wanted somebody who really knew what they were doing to you know, put the colour coats on and the clear coats. And it was to have 6 coats of clear in total. Yeah, I wanted that applied properly, and so I could get the finish that I desired. The car was completely painted now and had its first 3 coats of clear applied, and I've got to say it looked absolutely amazing when I walked in the booth. And I've got to say that walking around it, I'm thinking, do I really want to take this back home and then sand it all back, ready for the next 3 coats of clear? But I just kept the end goal in mind and the look that I wanted of the paint, which is that really deep look that you look through it and it just looks really deep, and just that mirror finish. The car is to go in shows. It will be street driven, but I also want to put it in shows in the Street Elite category. So yeah, I really want the paint to look good. So it was now time to have it back home, and once it was home I was going to leave it for a couple of months to just let the paint really dry, you know, because the clear is obviously still soft for quite a while. So the plan was to leave it for a couple of months and then attack it with the wet and dry, and get it ready for the next 3 coats of clear. As nice as it was to have the car back and as nice as it looked, it was now time to get ready to sand it back with wet and dry, ready for the flow coat, which is the last 3 coats of clear. After that, they get rubbed back as well, and then it gets buffed up. So there was a lot of work in this, blocking back each panel very carefully. Don't want to rub through the first lot of clear and hit the colour, otherwise it's a repaint. So here it is now, all finished. Looks like silk, got a slight shine on it, and yeah, ready for the last 3 coats of clear. And yeah, it came out and looked absolutely beautiful. It's a shame again to have to rub that back, but it'll be worth it in the long run because it gives you a real depth when you look through the paint, and obviously it's going to be very, very flat, smooth, and very, very shiny. And that's the look that I was after right from the word go, and I think it'll be something to be very, very proud of.